Are you preparing yourself for an IT exam? Do you know where and how to start? Do you know what is the best way to learn? Have you ever considered using dumps? I am Angry Admin from angrysysops.com and this is my podcast in the cloud. Let's start. Let me start this episode by giving my personal opinion about some exams, and I think not all of them are fair, as many times they want to trick you and you will mark wrong answer by not reading correctly a question, or the question is made this way that it's very easy to read it wrong, especially if English language is not your first language. What I notice, especially on the exams from Microsoft, is that they ask you a question and they throw the word not or no in the question, which makes a positive sense of that question to negative sense of question. So instead of how should you do this, it's how you should not to do this. And it's very easy to miss that, especially during the exam when you are under the stress. And again, if the English is not your first language, you can very easily not to see that. And I think I saw something similar on the VMware exam also. Next one is something which I find very unfair, which is the question like this. You have a question and you have 4 answers, and under the question you have this statement: all 4 answers are correct. Which is the best answer? Or something similar, but they're asking which is the fastest way to do it, or at the least steps to do it, which shouldn't be the case, to be honest with you, because who cares? Really, who cares? What is the difference if you do something through GUI or CLI? Okay, it may be more time consuming, but you will learn the other way. The most important is that you know how to do it. That's why I don't like those type of exams. I find them unfair, and I think people may cheat on those exams, which I will be talking later on this show. Now I will tell you about the best exam ever, and it was Red Hat RCSA, Red Hat Certified System Administrator. Why? Because on that exam you are receiving the list of tasks and you need to perform those tasks. And it doesn't matter if you use GUI or if you use command line. What is important, your changes have to survive reboot. That's it. So any change you do on the system, it has to survive reboot. If it does, then you have a point. And I was sitting on that exam. I was prepared to do everything in the CLI, but there was a task I remember, I think, to set up network, and suddenly I have the empty head and I don't know, I don't remember. And I opened the GUI, I configured the network in GUI, reboot the system, I saw that everything was fine, and then I went to terminal, and the rest of the exam I performed from the terminal. And it was great experience. It was real life experience, because you as an admin, you have a free choice to use any tool available to you. As I am preparing now for the VCAP deploy VMware exam, I hope that will be similar experience to Red Hat. Let me talk now about my experience with failed exams. The worst ever feedback was from the exam from Salesforce. I was doing the Salesforce Certificate Administrator exam back in 2015. I don't know how it's now, maybe it's changed, maybe it's better now, but I remember I was doing that exam and I clicked submit and I got a fail, and that's it. You failed the exam. There was no information how many questions I get right. It was no information of the areas which I failed. So like in the Microsoft exam, or I believe the Cisco as well, they give you some kind of percentage which area you were strong. Let's say the security you were strong, the administration part you were weaker, the network you were the weakest. So more or less you know which question or which areas you need to focus on. On the Salesforce exam, it was just pure fail. That's it. And again, it was back in 2015, so I don't know, they may change it now. But yes, that was the worst. Okay, let's talk now how to prepare for exam, and let's focus on the VMware exams. Let me tell you a short story before we start. There was a tourist visiting New York, and he approached the pedestrian and asked, "Sorry, do you know how to get to Carnegie Hall?" And the guy said, "Practice, practice, practice." And this is so true. The best option to learn, the best option to familiarize yourself with the environment, with the commands, with day-to-day operation is to practice. If you're already working with VMware environment, that's easier because you have access to the environment. But if you don't and you're starting from scratch, or you do work with environment but you want to learn or make exercise at home, build your own home lab. And if you visit my website angrysysops.com, you see the home lab section, and there is a guide, step-by-step guide, how to build home lab on your own PC. You don't need anything more than VMware workstation and the ISO files. That's it. If you're in the position that you cannot build your home lab, you can always go to VMware website and they host labs. The URL is labs.hall.vmware.com. Sign up for the training. I know it's very expensive, but sometimes actually all the places I work, the company always sponsor you a training and an exam. So if you're lucky enough, maybe your company can do it for you as well. If you don't work in that environment, it may be expensive option for you, but it's well worth it. Especially if you didn't have a chance to work on environment. During the training, you will get the labs, you will familiarize yourself with the environment, and you see how everything works. And in my humble opinion, don't waste your time on reading the books, just do the labs. And now it's the time for the most controversial part of this audition, which are dumps. Should we use dumps? What are dumps? Let's find out. Dumps are collections of questions from particular exam, either memorized by people taking part of the exams or leaked from the vendor, and they are illegal. As you are going for exam, you are signing NDA, which means that is non-disclosure agreement. You cannot talk about the questions, you cannot share those questions with anyone. So, should you use the dumps? Or you shouldn't use the dumps. And there are two sides of the story. Okay, so one side of the story could be very controversial, and I would say yes, use the dump, but there's a condition. You need to know your stuff. If you are an admin for a number of years, if you work on the VMware product for a number of years, if you know that product inside out, I would say go for it. You will need a little bit of help, that's fine. Especially, that's what I mentioned on the very beginning of that audition, is that some questions are made on purpose to catch you, to get you off the guard and to fail you. If the exams would be like the Red Hat exam, there will be no need for dumps. You will get a list of the tasks and either you know or not. So I'm hoping that the VCAP exam will be something similar, and I hope to get a very good experience. And the other side of the coin is that while I am administrating 2 forums on the Facebook and I'm running one of the forums, there are number of people asking for dumps. Obviously we are not allowed dumps on the forums and we don't give any advice on that topic. However, if you are not able to go to Google and search for dumps, which by the way are very easy available, you not only shouldn't use the dumps, you shouldn't look for the job in IT sector first of all, because searching the Google is the first thing you need to know. And let's say you pass exam on dumps and you're going for interview and you'll be easy caught. And let me tell you, I had quite few candidates which they have a VCP, and I asked them, can you describe how vMotion works? Or can you describe how DRS and HA works? And they couldn't. It's obviously they pass on the dumps. So guys, do yourself a favor and don't use dumps if you don't know your stuff. If the only source of your knowledge are dumps, you are screwed. If the dumps are your only source of knowledge, don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to other people who you will waste their time. Let me tell you the story, because I saw that article somewhere that was company, I think was software developer position, and the guy put on the resume, on the CV, that he were very advanced in the coding. He went on the interview. It appears that he wasn't good enough even for junior position, and the company charged him for the time of the persons. There was the time for HR person, for the senior developer, product manager. I think it's ended up $400 or so with the bill, and they said it's not about the money, it's about the principle, and I agreed. Don't lie on your CV. If you pass exam on dumps and you got a job, man, I don't know how that company deserves you. That's what I can tell you. That company deserves you, and deserves whatever you will break and whatever disaster you will cause. Okay, and that was me on the subject of exams. What's your opinion? What's your strategy for exams? Do you use dumps? Are you brave enough to say yes or no? What's your experience? Let me know on the Twitter at AngrySysops, or visit my Facebook page AngrySysops and leave me a message. On my blog page angrysysops.com you can find all the social media and contact to me. Thank you for tuning in for that podcast. Also, that podcast will be available on the YouTube. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next one. Bye.